That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Umma, the directorial debut of Iris K. Shim, which Sony Pictures Releasing is releasing on March 18th, 2022.
This makes me think of how upset Oprah was about the whole Umma Oprah at the Oscars.
She was upset about that?
Someone, I feel like she has mentioned it numerous times how uncomfortable it made her. Because the host said their names like that, I think.
What is interesting about this title is it is Korean for mother. And there is an excellent South Korean film from Bong Joon-ho in 2009 called Mother.
Oh, interesting.
But here we are. This one is trying to be, culturally relevant and specific and be a horror story with subtext and themes. It's notably produced by Sam Raimi and Andre Ovredal.
The director?
It's her first film, Iris K. Shim.
Okay. The basic story. Sandra Oh plays a character named Amanda, and she lives in like a small rural town. She's a beekeeper who harvests honey, and that's how she makes her money.
And I just learned that the fancy name for those types of people are apiarists.
Okay. So Sandra Oh lives in a rural town, sells honey. She lives in this home of hers with her teenage daughter.
Chrissy, played by Fivel Stewart, who is the sister of Boo Boo Stewart.
There's someone named Boo Boo Stewart?
Yeah. I saw him.
It's a man?
Yeah. They're brother and
Boo
sister.
Boo?
Yeah.
Like Boo Boo the Fool?
Like Boo Boo the Fool.
Oh.
And I'm not him. But
wow.
They are also part of a musical group. And I think their parents are an actress and a stunt coordinator.
I'm so off track right now.
Anyway, Boo Boo Stewart was in the movie Let Him Go, which you didn't see.
Okay. Sandra Oh, beekeeper, lives with her daughter. She lives with no electricity because she has like PTSD over something that we don't find out until much later in the film.
She says it makes her sick.
But she lives in like this very interesting scenario because it's modern times. So she and her daughter are without things like the internet and phones. Okay, so Dermot Mulroney has like a store or whatever, and he buys the honey from her.
And recently she's gone viral, even though she doesn't know what that means, and they can't keep up with the honey supply.
Which really has nothing to do with the story.
It presses the fact that she has to build more hives and will depend more on her daughter, who's
going off to college.
Who's trying to leave.
Okay. All right. One day, Amanda's uncle shows up and says, "Girl, I've been looking for you. Your mama died months ago. And because you weren't there, she plans on haunting you." And then gives her a suitcase with the mom's ashes and some other stuff in it and leaves.
And he says that she's in this suitcase and she's going to seep out of here and poison you.
And that's what she does. So obviously the dead mother and Amanda had a contentious relationship. So the mother is sort of infecting Amanda and like sort of turning her into the mother, which is now affecting Amanda's relationship with her own daughter, which you can get into. But everything comes to a head when Amanda finally realizes she needs to just bury these ashes to get rid of her mother. But at that point, the spirit becomes physical, and we learn the backstory of their relationship and why Amanda's afraid of electricity. So the mother is from South Korea, moved to the United States to be with her husband, but back in South Korea, she had a successful business. So
she was a dressmaker.
So she comes for love when the husband leaves her and her daughter. So now she's obviously like unhappy and would take out her anger on her daughter by locking Amanda when she was a little girl in a closet and electrocuting her with a broken lamp, basically telling her like, this represents us and I need you I need you to understand my pain. Okay, so
very Margaret White.
So because of that, for the last 16 years, but there's a gap between when she was doing that and when she started not using electricity, right?
Yes.
So that seems weird. But that's the story. And then it ends with her doing the thing that gets done in a lot of films with evil spirits, where she basically says, like, I'm not afraid of you, I banish you. And just to be nice, I'll give you a proper burial.
Bye, bye, bye.
So the end of the film is
the
evil spirit getting
they have the ceremony,
a traditional funeral at the end. I did not watch this movie. What did you think about it?
I do like Sandra Oh. It's nice to see her in a lead role. It's also nice to see some traditional Korean, like cultural
Whatnots and things.
whatnots and things in here. Like it's nice to she's speaking with her mother in Korean.
Oh, I do like that. I was glad to hear that.
I do really like that. But the mother is described as what's called a gwisen, which is a type of spirit that is trapped. It's someone dies and their spirit is trapped, and they either need to take vengeance or there's some unfinished business.
Did you like this movie?
I like parts of it, but as a horror film, I don't think it works because it's we're very familiar with these films about how we banish these kinds of spirits, and there's to me there's nothing better. There's nothing that's going to top something like The Babadook, which this reminded me a little bit about, is having to contend with the past and the irony of you avoiding your fate, or by avoiding your past, you end up becoming.
You steal your fate.
You steal your fate. By avoiding dealing with her mother, she becomes her mother, kind of. And also how rituals are really, we say they're for the dead, but it's really for the living to psychologically lay them to rest in our minds.
You mentioned there are some funny moments when Sandra Oh's character being possessed sort of does mean things to her daughter.
Oh yeah, she's
like
she's braiding her daughter's hair, and then you can see her face gets old underneath the eyes. It gets old, and she like yanks on her daughter's hair. Oh, sorry. But it begins a little bit awkwardly because it starts where Amanda is having a nightmare and somebody's calling out Soo-hyun. That's her original name. And you see cracks of electricity and a girl screaming. She wakes up in a sweat and she goes down to her cellar and throws this box that contains this lamp in it and breaks it and shuts off the electricity. And then we get 16 years later. And it's, wait, what? Why are we 16 years later? And you'd heard a baby screaming. Now all of a sudden we have Fivel Stewart there. They're raising bees, blah blah blah. And I thought it was interesting that the mechanism right away is this. Here's a ghost, and it's gonna haunt you. I did like that. It's just
when you said that, I thought that's a very interesting element to introduce so early.
Like in the first act.
Yeah.
But the mother and daughter are so close. They're seen on a porch reading a book, and they're reading at the same time. And the daughter's like, "You read too slow. Hurry up." Like, okay.
Well, but they also don't have electricity or anything, so it would make sense. They're kind of
she's been homeschooled, and her mother is her only friend. Dermot Mulroney's.
How does the girl look?
She's beautiful.
Like she.
Oh, do you mean like she? No, I mean they're functioning.
I guess I was just trying to think if I had if I grew up without electricity, internet, phone, wouldn't I be a little backwards? But I guess not.
The local kids make fun of her because she goes into town to pick up supplies from Dermot Mulroney, who I was convinced they would make the father, but he's not. The dad's just.
I want to call him Donut Mahoney.
Dylan McDermott, Dermot Mulroney, Umma Oprah, who is turning into Sam Elliott. Maybe.
Is his hair white?
Yeah, he's older now.
Dermot Mulroney. How old do you think he is?
He's probably in his 50s. You know, he used to be married to Catherine. No, he's older than he was when you're thinking. Anyway, he used to be married to Catherine Keener.
I like Catherine Keener, but you know what I should do since I couldn't. What's the movie?
The Adam Project?
The Adam Project. For our review, I couldn't find footage of a DH Catherine Keener, but I bet I can find some now. So I'm going to insert DH Catherine Keener right now.
I mean, that's a travesty right there.
That's scary.
But
that's scarier than this movie.
Yes, it is. Where Umma really falters is the scenes shared between Sandra Oh and Dermot Mulroney, because those are... The dialogue is terrible, and he just doesn't seem very interested in navigating around them. Anyway, there's another plot point where his niece is coming to visit him, played by Odeya Rush, who was in Lady Bird and recently Cha Cha Real Smooth.
Lady Bird. Is she the one who falls off the car?
No, that's Saoirse Ronan. That's the lead.
I don't know. I you know what? I know them about the same.
Anyway, she kind of befriends her, and she's used as a catalyst in some scenes. I think it is touching seeing Sandra Oh talk to her mother and tapping into, immigrant stories that we don't use. You know, if you really think about it, this woman moved here. She's abandoned by her husband. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't have the successful business or the friends or the connection she has. You know, it's hard enough to move around in the U.S. where everybody speaks English, much less another country, and just kind of. I think the dialogue and the acting between mother and daughter and grandmother, and I think that those are well done and deserving. I think they deserve just something without the supernatural element. I just don't. I almost feel like that distracts and our expectations take away. That said, the production value is fine. It was shot by Matt Flannery, who lends a few Gareth Evans films, including the Raid movies. Which, if there's any reason to watch the Raid movies, I guess it would be for how they look. Roque Banos did the score. That sounds great. He's scored, I think, all of Fede Alvarez's films. And the editor, one of the editors was Kevin Grutert, who directed the last two Saw movies. Which, when I saw his name, I thought that was interesting. Anyhow, I think that it's fine, and I think that if you want to support Sandra Oh and like Sandra Oh, then it's definitely worth seeing.
Did you go through your notes?
Uh-huh.
What would you give this film?
This PG-13 horror film, I would give it 2 out of 5.
Anything else?
No.
Bye.